Welcome to this tutorial about executing and debugging MPJ Express programs using Eclipse IDE. This tutorial guides you step by step on how to execute and debug parallel applications using MPJ Express in the multi-core configuration. I've already launched the Eclipse IDE. I'm going to close this welcome window and create a new Java project. I'll name it multi-core debugger demo and I'll click next. Here in this window with the labeled Java settings, I have this option of importing external jar files. So I'll need this option to import the required libraries. I'll just click open and I click finish. So a very basic version of the Hello World MPJ Express project has been created. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to add Java source files to my project. So for this I create a new file. I name it Hello Eclipse World and I click finish. So to save time I'll just copy paste the source code. To explain this code, the first thing I'm doing here is to import the MPL library, and then in the main method the first thing we do is to initialize the MPJ Express library. In the next line, each MPJ Express process gets its rank within the world communicator. The next thing we do is to get the size of the world communicator, and in the next line we are basically printing the rank and the size of the MPJ Express parallel program. The last thing that any parallel application does is to finalize the MPJ Express library. So now the next thing we do is to basically learn how to execute this code in the MPJ Express in the Eclipse IDE. For this purpose we go to run configurations. I'm just going to double click this Java application which will create a default launch configuration for me. So here the first thing I do is to export the environment variable MPJ home. This basically points to the root folder of the MPJ Express software. In my case, MPJ Express software is in the D directory. So I'll just go to the D directory and choose the MPJ Express root folder. Click OK, OK again. And now I have this variable set. And I'll just double click it here and basically apply it. Now I go to the arguments tab. Here I need to specify the jar file that contains the source code of the MPJ Express runtime, and that happens to be the starter.jar inside the MPJ home/lib directory. Another argument that I'm going to specify is -mp4. So by this we are basically telling the runtime to execute 4 parallel processes of the MPJ Express software. So the next thing that I do is I click apply, and now if I run the source code, the code will basically run in the multi-core configuration, and as you can see from the console, 4 processes were started and each of the process printed its rank and the size of the world communicator. Right, so now we know how to execute this Hello World program. The next thing that we would like to do is to start debugging this code. So for this purpose we go to the debug perspective and introduce breakpoints in our source code. So if I double click this scroll bar, I'll just now I've introduced a breakpoint on the line where each MPJ Express process is getting its rank from the world communicator. Right, so now we need to go back again to the run configuration. So basically we need to specify an additional argument. So I'm going to copy and paste this from the MPJ Express guide that we have written. So this argument would basically start MPJ Express software in the debug mode. An important thing to note here is this last argument address equals 8000. This is the default port used by Eclipse debugger, and the purpose for this is that this particular port will be used by the Eclipse debugger to attach itself with the parallel MPJ Express application. So click apply and just click run. So basically now we have started the MPJ Express parallel application, and as you can see on the console, it's basically listening on port 8000. It's currently suspended and it's waiting for remote debuggers to attach with the current MPJ Express JVM. So obviously this behavior is configurable and we can change the VM argument to modify this behavior. So the next thing that we do is to now configure our debugger. For this purpose we open the debug configurations and we basically double click this remote Java application. This will create a default debugger launch configuration for us. It's again using the default port, which is 8000, and now we basically click debug to start debugging the source code. So now here, as you can see, basically we are running 4 parallel MPJ Express processes here. We can ignore this thread main because this is an internal MPJ Express thread, and so we need to care about these 4 threads with the index 0, 1, 2 and 3. These are the parallel MPJ Express threads that are executing the code, and these are currently suspended on the line where we introduced the breakpoint. Now we can control the behavior of these threads by using options like step over, step return, step into, or using this resume functionality. I'll just play around with this first thread and I'll basically use this step over option to basically resume execution. So by clicking step over once, we have executed the line where we are getting the rank. If I press this step over button again, on the right hand side this size variable would appear. The value is 4. Similarly, if I press it once more, then I can see the print statement from process 0 on the console line. Similarly, I can now resume execution of thread 1, thread 0, thread 2, and now let's just concentrate on this last line, and I'll just use step over option to execute lines one by one. So as I executed, used the step over button once, the rank variable was basically appeared on the right hand side and its value set to 1, and if I do this again, then size, and if I do this once more, then I should see this print statement from process 1. So one thing you should note is that the threads appearing on this left hand side have these indices, but these are not MPJ Express IDs or ranks assigned in the world communicator. These are just numbers picked up by the Eclipse IDE along with the Java virtual machine. So if you are interested in knowing ranks of a particular thread, then we should really look at the value returned by the rank method, which for if you notice this thread index 3, the rank value is basically set is 1. So now I basically resume execution of the last thread as well. Now if I just go back to the Java perspective, I can see that all processes have finished their execution and printed on the console. So that's all. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and if you have any questions or comments, please email us on the MPJ Express mailing list.